First of all, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure having you as a co-host on Voice Masters Livestream.
Very cool. I am so glad that that you thought enough of me to ask me to come. How about that?
Yeah, my pleasure. It was really great. You did a wonderful job, and I know that myself and our members are really going to enjoy being able to access the archive and watch this live stream again and again. You have such a natural ease about the topic and about how you work with people. It's very refreshing and it's very unique.
Thank you. I tried to just be myself, if you can't tell.
That message, that's really a message I have for everybody. Is the only thing. Let's be honest. I mean, I've been a professional singer for 30 years. I've sung all over the world in so many theaters on so many stages. Um, there's a scary amount of phenomenal singers out there.
Say it again.
Share this story for you, okay, with you because I was at an audition, and everybody has to audition sometime, and I was waiting backstage. It was for an opera, and if you go to an opera audition, they basically put you on the big stage and they sit in the big house, basically like, let's see if you can fill this house, right? So I was sitting backstage, and you always hear people sing, and I heard this guy sing, and it was amazing. I mean, it was on par with any of the great stars in history. It was amazing. The guy was phenomenal singer. I'm like, oh my gosh, why is he auditioning at this house? It was a big house, but it wasn't the biggest house. And I thought to myself, I gotta see, who this is when he walks out. And this guy, I mean, it was I don't know where he was from, but he was Asian, and there's a lot of phenomenal Asian opera singers. And he just came walking down the hallway, and he was coming down, and he, I'm sorry to say this, but his feet were like this, turned out like this. His posture was like this. His hair was here, and he came walking there, and he was shaking like this. He wasn't even talking. He was just walking like this, and I just thought to myself, well, they're never going to be able to hire him, because he's not, you can't put him on stage. But I was thinking this guy's going to sing concerts, right, and do some recordings, and people will love it, but you can't put him in a piece, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want singers to be intimidated by all of the amazing singers out there. And it's
Yeah.
like, I'm a little critical of this individual, but it's just reality.
Yeah. But here's the thing too that you think about, that at least I think about is, just like you said, he's going to be on a concert stage somewhere. I think sometimes because we measure our success based upon this perceived narrow scope, instead of him thinking like, because in order to be a successful classical singer, that means I need to be on the Met or whatever, versus recognizing that I have a gift, because apparently he has a gift that needs to be shared with the world, and I'm going to do this within this platform, you know. But so that's cool. That's a no. That happens all the time, and
It
you know,
does. And you're right on. You got to know that's the message I guess I want to get across right now to people who are going to watch this later is there's a place for you, and what's unique about you is unique about you. So I think this guy was much better than I was, but I'm the one that got the job. And it was because of what I had that was unique about me that fit for this position, right? And it will help you to get hired when you know yourself and you know your type. But also, I really want people to realize the thing that differentiates you out there in the world is your uniqueness. You
yes,
don't have to even work for it. You already have it.
yeah, you have to work to trust it. You have to work to value it, because unfortunately, society doesn't allow us to to measure ourselves and against ourselves. You know, we're always like, oh no, this is the image, this is the whatever I have to work up to, and we got to spend some more time celebrating ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's dig in. Okay, here's the first question coming up. What can I suggest to students who choose the song because they just love the music, not the lyrics?
Well, that's a good question. I get that all the time.
Yeah.
And I say, meaning I get students of mine. And for me, because I always start everything for my singers with, you've been allotted this platform to speak to people. You have the ability to make them feel happy, to make them feel sad, to make them feel compassionate, to charge them to do something. What are you going to do with this platform? And usually when I have this conversation, they're like, okay, well, let me think about this. And they typically go back and either pick another song, or I make them write something. So how are you going to change these words so that they're what you want to do? How can you make it from the perspective that makes sense for you? I have to do that a lot with younger students. I don't work with too many under 18 students, but when I do, don't sing no grown song about a grown topic. I'm just saying, you know, I always say, if you can't speak, if I can't stand there and watch you speak these words and tell this story to A, your friends, or B, mine, then I'm not going to teach you to sing that. Okay? So I'm always rewriting stuff. You know, for my singers to make it age appropriate or to make it context, because it could be love. They can sing songs about love. I mean, you experience love at all ages, hopefully, prayerfully, you know. But if we're talking about some other stuff that you know may be beyond what you even know about or should know about, then that's where I'm at. So I typically take that approach. Write your own or pick a story that you want to tell.
Yeah, thank you for that. I agree. It's got to be, and there's something I'll also talk to singers about, and because I discovered this luckily when I was younger, that it's not so important that your personal context match the context of the artist that the original artist is singing, or even in a show. You don't have to have that same context as what your situation is, how you relate to it personally. You can make it up, right? So little younger adolescents, I have some students that are very young and very gifted, but if they're singing, you know, a song like you know, Honey's Beautiful, there's so many more layers to that depending on what age you are. But they can relate at their own level, and that's what we need to do. We need to find, how do we relate to this personally, and you can make up your own context. It doesn't have to be, this is what I saw this artist do, or
Right.
how they did it on the stage. It's really your secret. And the truth is, all of those artists, they're not telling you their secrets either.
Exactly.
You're feeling their message because they're going on a journey. So feel free to use that, and maybe I'll take that next question.
Yeah, but before you say that, that reminds me of a exercise that I've done with one of my actually undergrads, who talked about that she's never been in love before, and so she hadn't been out of love, you know. And we were singing Autumn Leaves, okay, which is a jazz song, a jazz standard. And so we ended up, even though she was singing Autumn Leaves, which talks about a lover relationship that you're kind of reminiscent about, she started talking about her father, her relationship with her father and the things that occurred that made her think of her father and the time that they used to share together and how she missed that. And it ended up being the completely just as emotional, using the words autumn leaves drift by my window, you know. So those things are all the time, are very much easier to do with songs that have lyrics that help with that imagination.
Yeah, thank you for that. That is a perfect example. There is a question that we got that goes along these lines, I think, and that is, any song might be sung from who we are as a person, or is it also valid to get to the characters that you are not, but the character says the lyrics? So yes, it's totally valid. And when you're talking about a character, right, we need to find out if you're playing a funny person, you need to find the funny in you, right? And if you're playing a villain, you have to play that character as authentically as possible. So you're not, you might not be a murderer. Hopefully you're not. That'd be scary, right? But nobody, just an example, nobody believes that they're evil. Even evil people don't think they're evil. They have a motivation for what they're doing, and whatever that may be. So you don't have to think like that person, but you have to, as the character, make similar choices. Making up your secret background, and how am I going to relate to this? And perhaps you take it completely out of context, but you need to respond to this as the character. And I guess what I want to say is that is you. It's still you being the character, right? So there's not really disconnect between what you feel and what a character feels. If you're doing it right, the character feels what you feel. You want to add anything to that, Trineice?
Yeah, I mean, this is where I go back into the concept of root emotions. You know, at the end of the day, what are you singing about? And that's where you get to embody compassion for certain people or certain circumstances. Obviously in my music, I'm not playing a character or a role, but there are some stories, if I'm talking to you about someone else's story, that I have compassion for, that I may not have been through that place, but because of the root emotion, I can emote from that place, and I can sing from a place of empathy and compassion. Okay, so that's how it relate in what I do.
Yeah, that's an excellent angle, and I think it's important we to look at that, and with singing technique and also different techniques. I mean, for me, Dr. Trineice just described with some different words exactly what I was saying, right? But maybe the way she said it went bing to you, and maybe the way I said it went bing. And when you're going into vocal terminology and singing terminology, a really good professional coach doesn't care what you call it. What we care about is that the light goes on.
Right.
All right. But that is so true. It's the root emotion, this core emotion, and that you can use for so many different situations. We've got another question about, because a lot of teachers have this issue, right? You've got a student, and the question is, I'll share it with you. I don't want to. Where is it? Open up. There we go. So the question is, got stuff rolling around on my desk. Sorry about that. The question again is, what do you do with a student who is unable to, or having trouble expressing themselves emotionally with the text? Students who are embarrassed to open up. And everybody, we all deal with this. So what are some tricks, or what's a trick that you've had some success with, Dr. Trineice?
Well, for me, I'm usually trying to start in a space where their personality. I try to assign songs or encourage them to choose songs or topics that they can better emote with, which could be tranquility or contentment particularly for people that don't have like, or have been conditioned to be very refined, or that have been taught that outward emotion is not dignified, that there's reasons, particularly at Princeton, where someone may not come out being outwardly expressive, but yet have the desire. So a lot of times I'm trying to get them first to be comfortable with just expressing themselves, and start to really delve deep, because again, it could be a cultural thing. It could be like an ethnic cultural thing, not a socioeconomical cultural thing, where you're just not taught to be outwardly expressive. So starting to realize context, starting to realize, well, what are the differences? Because unless they are really like, and I've had some that are really like, yeah, this is my happy face, like no expression, that ends up, it ends up working when you're trying to get them to just loosen up in general. When they're staged performers or theatrical performers, we do a lot of work on the mute test. A lot of times it can be an awareness thing. Like, are you using your face at all? Are you using your body language? Okay, I'm going to make a video of you. Let's put you on mute. Do you want to unmute? Like, is there anything that you're doing that's compelling you to be like, oh, what's happening? We look at other performers on mute. What is it about their mannerism? So sometimes I come at it from a body standpoint. But most of the time it's just what kind of exercises, like the one that I did before, where I'm taking you outside of the music. Let's just talk about this. Let's musically talk about what, this root emotion, what the story is. If you were to continue this conversation, what would it be? What would you say outside the music? And then trying to put it back into the music. So I'm always moving from an internal place, okay, which may be longer. So I don't know if that might be your path. You might not be. You might be like, I don't have time for that. But that is my approach.
I'm going to pop up question number 5. Where did it go? I'm going to make it look nice for y'all.
I'm loving the popped up questions. I'm like, yes, okay.
How do you work with a student on technique in this context? You mentioned earlier training with the voice. Oops, there's a typo. Sorry, people. The voice to be sustainable within the sound that is needed for gospel and R&B. Can you please elaborate?
Yeah, so in my work, I have different phases of a lesson. So I have an anatomical awareness as a distinct phase, even at least interchange. I have voice training, like vocal fitness or voice conditioning, as a distinct training. Style conditioning as a distinct phase. And then song interpretation as a distinct phase. So the work that we did today is into more of the style conditioning and song development. So those are the exercises that I would use in that context. So when I'm training a singer to be able to sustain certain sounds that they've identified as their emotive self, then I'm doing that as a separate process. It's still on music, but I'm using what I know and believe about science, about voice science and pedagogy, everything from strengthening exercises. I'm very much into vocal function. And so I'm usually training the instrument to be stronger and to have endurance and to be flexible and to be agile, abstract of the style. And then when I move into style conditioning, then I'm putting the strength of the instrument or the conditioning of the instrument in the context of the style. So for gospel particularly, there are certain things that I'm conditioning, like an assertive, not aggressive, but assertive approach to conversation, passion and conviction. So trying to make sure that as I'm developing the voice, the instrument itself, I'm also conditioning its ability to be as a matter of fact, and making sure that that is not dependent upon volume, but also at the same time, if I wanted to be about volume, I'm not squeezing my throat. So these are the things, that's the approach that I do for that. Put in that. I hope that answered that question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, for me it did, and I totally agree. So I'm bringing out a course. It centers around 4 activities of singing, because I believe singing, I consider it an activity. It's emotion, right? And I talk about the 4 activities of singing. If we work on one of these activities, the other 3 get better. But we can't only focus on one. We do need to focus on all 4. And the more we develop things individually, the more they sync up.
Right.
I like to think of funny examples, but this one just came to mind. If I go to the playground with my daughter, she's 4. Now she's going to be all over that thing. And I'm not doing that every day.
Right.
Last time you go to the slide and slide down it 10, 20 times in a row, she's going to beat me on that level, because she knows how to have fun. She knows all these things. She's exploring, and that's not something I do every day. So I have to, I can have my fun, but at first I got to get over myself and, not be embarrassed to get on that playground with her.
All right.
Out what other people are thinking. Oh, look at that guy. What's he doing up there? But that's a little bit, of course, completely different thing. But
no, but certainly the same context.
Open and find our personal joy and be real with ourselves and get rid of the inhibitions. That does take some time.
It absolutely does. And I think that, particularly when we're talking about musical styles that are emotionally charged, that a lot of the tension and issues that we have are from trying to suppress this. Like, oh, you get on my nerves, oh my God, versus being able to freely and move that energy in a way that's going to not feel like your throat is a funnel. I'm like, it's a tunnel, not a funnel.
So maybe just to come back to the question, yes, we do need to work on different aspects, obviously, but for this, in this context, I understood you to say, this is the discovery context. This is identifying what is my natural
tendency,
sound design when I think about how would I express this in a conversation, and if it were very, very important to me and I wanted to be understood, how would I express it emotionally? And that is the discovery process. And I think it's so important, because that ultimately leads to the choices you're going to use for the sounds in your singing. Okay, and that's the path. This is where we go. And when we've found the choices, to get back to this question, that's what we're looking for here. And then we can work on the strengthening and technical elements to make those more easily accessible and reliable and healthy.
That's right. And just to capitalize on that from the teacher's perspective, when they expose these areas, like for example in the live stream, sure, did I hear things like, oh, that would be great if she could work on this, or she can work on this to make that more stable. The discovery has to happen first.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that if we predefine the technique in the sense that, oh, I can do this, it ends up becoming, I can do this in this context, but I'm not thinking about how am I emoting.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm thinking about, am I getting this, coordination right?
Right.
So
I think that's so important. Yeah. Actually, a lot of times I will do sessions with clients and singers and spend the entire session. Maybe sometimes I'll spend three sessions in a row just on the emotional layering and the connection here, because when they really get that connected, guess what? Most of the technical problems disappear.
They sure do. That is so true. I agree. 100%.
So we've got the next question here is, what's the difference between speech level singing and conversational singing? And I don't know, I mean, if for those that didn't watch the live stream or haven't seen it yet, we focused a lot, Dr. Trineice focused a lot on the natural expression. And so I guess it's a pretty logical question for somebody looking at maybe terminology as well, and finding that what you did today was so much about putting it in the conversation, and then they heard speech level singing as perhaps a technique or a topic. I would basically say there's no difference right here between conversation and speech level singing. That's the essence of it, actually, is not just saying, hi, my name is Philippe. It's putting it into, hi, how are you? My name is Philippe. Completely different. Hey, how are you? I'm Philippe. They're completely different sound designs. What would you like to say to that question?
Well, because I'm not as well versed in speech level singing methodology and training, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying, well, it's this or it's the same or it's different or whatever. But what I can say is that if it is the approach to recognizing and identifying your own patterns and sounds, then yes. But again, I don't know it. I don't know the process, the pedagogy for speech level singing enough to talk about it intelligently. But this process is more about discovering sounds and acknowledging the sounds that come out in the context of your personal behavior versus establishing or trying to get you to sound like something, which there are things that I'll do conversation based. Like, for example, if I want you to be able to say, oh my gosh, like if there are certain functional things that I want you to do, I will use conversation and context. But what I'm doing, the approach or the mindset that I'm looking at has more to do with you discovering the sounds and validating the sound qualities and the approach of your own emotive self. So for people that are well versed, you can validate or say it's different.
Sure. Yeah, we're not going to get into all the methodology levels, but the essence of it, they say in Italian as well, parla come canta, is just speak, and it comes back to this essence, right? And for me, it also comes back to the essence. We all know, anybody that has a healthy voice and can speak normally with a normal, natural melody for their language and region, you already have all the elements there that are required for singing. So a lot of this process is to help you tap into what you already know and realize that your body and mind already know how to make it happen. And that's the key. And then we isolate that and say, okay, it needs to feel like this, or it needs to feel a little bit more like this, because very few people walk around, all day long in their interactions, and every time they open their mouth and speak, their voice goes, or it hurts. If you do, then you need to go see, a specialist and work on that.
And on the contrary, on the other extreme, people don't go around me going, hold on, how are you doing?
It's so nice to meet you. But, some people talk like that, and that's fine. Some people just have this. Another funny story. I was doing Beauty and the Beast, right? And I was curious who was going to play Gaston, because I was going to play his little sidekick, because I play the villains and the comedians and the heroes that are quirky. That's just my skill set. The Foo in Beauty and the Beast, and I was curious, who this guy was going to be. And I met him. And I kid you not, his head was twice or three times as big as mine. His jaw was like this, it was huge. And he's like, hi, Philippe, ha, 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 it's so nice to meet you. I started laughing because it was Gaston.
Right.
Walked in, he was like, hey, everybody, how are you? It's just this huge, booming voice, head, giant jaw, big.
Yes.
It's just hilarious. And but Disney castings can be frustrating because they'll travel the world to find the character in real life.
Right. Believe it. That's hilarious.
So anyway, next question is, let's see. Let me find it. Here we go. Next question. If I'm singing in an a cappella group, the sound and meaning of the song, vocal parts, is sort of already set because we are doing a cover, but I cannot sing my part great because I sort of can't fit in that designed sound. What can I do in such choral environment? Thank you so much, both Philippe and Dr. Trineice.
That is an interesting question. And it's a depends, and meaning it depends upon what your function is at a given moment. You know, on college campuses, it's a cappella country, in academia, So there are some times when it's your function to be a part of unified sound, in which there are liberties that you're not going to make unless everyone makes it with you. Mm-hmm. Then there are times where you are the lead within these contexts, and while the melody may be prearranged, if you want to create your own version, a lot of that can be done with the textures and colors that you use. So you can keep the rhythm and melody the same, but still change the texture. You can change the volume. You can add in words, in space, words or musical utterances. We call it musical interpolations or textual interpolations, in which you're inserting melodic ideas or textual ideas within the written construct. And you can find the spaces within the arrangement that you can make these personalized decisions to tell your story without interfering with the communal message, with the communal approach. So it has more to do, in my opinion, and at least this is how I coach my singers that are in these a cappella groups that are doing the leads, to say, okay, well, why will they want you to do this lead? What is it that you're going to bring? How can you use the arrangement that pre-exists to have this conversation in a way that still sounds like you, that still stresses the words that you'll stress, but at the same time is coordinated and synchronized, so that you and your fellow singers are presenting this kind of unified, I'm going to say, and they backing me up, or we're going to sing this together.
Yeah, that's very valid. I was just thinking about it because we spend a lot of time in the live stream talking about personal exploration and stylistical development and improvisation, and that is important. I believe that the process is still very important for you, even if you're singing, even if you're a member of the choir and you don't have a solo. There are a lot of levels that are still important into that, and I would say it's like preparing a role and going to rehearsals. You have a director that's going to guide you into his concept, and you have a musical director in a choir that's going to guide you into his concept, and we have to be flexible if we're singing in an ensemble to take our homework, our emotional discovery homework, and be flexible to blend in and follow with the vision of that musical director. The whole thought process and the emotional connection that you have can continue on your individual level within this context. I've sung in a lot of ensembles, big opera ensembles. Nobody in the opera that's a soloist doesn't sing in the choir parts. I mean, almost always they want those leading voices in there. And I've also done a cappella groups, jazz groups, and it's very, very important that the group is harmonious. But I've felt very intense and inspiring emotion singing in the choir and singing with the group, and but that I can't say that everybody. I'm sure not everybody had the same thought process I was having, or maybe not felt the emotions the same way, but I was infusing my sound with these emotions and fitting it within the concept, the design that the musical and the vision the musical director or director had for those projects. So you can feel very free to explore individually what it means to you, but you also need to be flexible with and adjust to the overall vision of the piece. Because in a choir, where if you're singing in a choir, if it's small, 8 people, 4 people, or 200, it has a concept, it has an energy, and it has a design, and we need to be flexible to support that design.
Yeah, and I think that when you think about like a gospel choir, or you think of again a cappella choir, where the singers feel just as convicted to portray the message, then we are talking about the same thing at the same time from our perspective, because we want you to be just a part of this story, or in the gospel context, we want you to understand what it is that we're trying to say at a given time. So there's a level of conviction that goes with that each member has, and the responsibility that each member has in the choir to speak with assertion and conviction, and saying that this is this, but we're doing it together like an army, like an army of words. In the a cappella scene, where it's smaller groups or smaller ensembles, you're looking at multiple soloists. So you're spread across the stage, and each of you have the charge to keep the audience engaged in the collective. So you have that component as well.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. I mean, if you think of it, we're just a group of people speaking with one voice.
Yeah, it really is. Absolutely.
Especially, because everybody's different, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of discussion nowadays about ethnicity, and there's a lot of extremism, more so in the media now than perhaps we've seen in the past. And it's a special experience when you can be together with a group of people from all over the world, from different backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures, and speak a message or sing a message with one voice. It's an incredibly powerful emotional experience.
Absolutely. It's why we do what we do. You're like, okay, I don't know everything that's happening in the world, but I know in our little space we have a sense of harmony and belonging and connectedness that makes it worth doing.
Yeah, we had today in the live stream, we had people from really all over the world. I don't know if you saw the chat where people are tuning in from, but things that pop into mind, we had, South America, a lot of South American countries, North America, Europe, people from the Middle East and Asia, even, Australia, India. That's a lot of different people, all unified by the love of the voice and singing.
Indeed.
Unifying factor.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah, I just want to thank you again, and I'd like to ask you, how did you enjoy being on Voice Masters Livestream?
I enjoyed it. Voice Masters Livestream, I thought, was a very cool experience, in the sense of bringing folks together in a very safe space that doesn't have the pressures of being in like an academic setting, but in a collective community. And I think that the singers and members that are able to participate in these weekly live streams are going to really, really just be in for a treat, because everybody that you've been bringing has been so different, and everybody that you've also been bringing has been themselves, and that's what I really appreciated about this platform that you've started and being a part of it. It's just being another voice in the community to say that we're the same and we're all growing together. So it was cool.
Thank you. It's been a joy having you, and I can't wait. I'm sure everybody's in the same boat. We can't wait for a return to a sense of normalcy, the new normal,
New normal.
whatever that's going to be, but where we can actually then get together and bring some people from different states, countries together in a physical location and share the same space and energy. I'm really looking forward to that, and
Yeah.
hope you'll join us again.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you again. I'm so happy, so honored to be here and share with y'all. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Dr.